Concept that does get talked about a lot is style of language and how it can affect a listener. In particular, I want to talk about formal versus informal language. It can be formal in terms of sentence structure, but also in terms of content. For example, metaphors, in particular, more sophisticated metaphors, tend to read as more formal, while informal language is often more blunt. This kind of formality is often different in that it primarily signals to the listener how intensely they should be analyzing the lyrics as they come at them. Both ends of the spectrum can be used effectively. If we look at the second verse for Hallelujah, for example, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. Firstly, the first line is completely ambiguous and seemingly unrelated to the second line, so we know there's some heavy metaphors going on. I'd also like to point out the words bathing and overthrew for not being commonly used in everyday speech. They're also very colorful, vivid verbs, very formal. This section also has some deep cuts to the fall of King David, which is also a rather niche reference, and so it's just very formal. Contrast this with something like From the Start. The first stanza says, "Don't you notice how I get quiet when there's no one else around?" It's like it's being taken directly out of casual conversation, and the focus of the song is a very common human emotion rather than a deep philosophical cut. So the subject of the song is affecting the approach you take to the language. In my own music, This Is Goodnight, we can see that most of it is very formal because it's setting a scene built off of a Schubert piece. When describing the speaker having left his love to venture into a winter forest, we have "My lover's whispers weaken from your teary lows, with every stray dog's howl, with every frozen rose." Very formal. Lots of imagery and metaphor. I also like this line later. "How could I stay when all these ghosts bribe me away?" It starts to play with more informal language without fully committing. If you're looking for great examples and of that use of a mix of formal and informal language, I particularly like Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, which you wouldn't expect it to be anything but informal language. But a lot of the lines, like referring to cars as suicide machines, that's a rather deep cultural cut. It requires a lot of the listener to fully analyze everything that's going on, because there's a lot of cultural context around something like that that's just kind of casually thrown in there, and then we finally hit at the end of each verse with "Baby, we were born to run," and you kind of like settle back into that informal language. So that's very much like an example of total mastery versus informal references and songwriting, in a way that mine is perhaps a bit like my own writing is still very much amateur in that regard. And utilizing this concept really well is a really difficult